Well, hello there, and welcome back to episode 26 of my Minecraft 1.15 Let's Play. I'm here at spawn, and I am invisible, in case you hadn't noticed, because I am still dealing with the shulkers here. So we've got a few over here, and I've got a setup here where I'm taking them up to the top of the nether. So I got a spiral rail going all the way up, and we'll see that in just a second. So I was watching another video about dealing with shulkers by Nembomb, and he pointed out that invisibility works by reducing the range at which mobs will detect you, but it only reduces it so far. So it's something like 1 block or so with shulkers. So that's good to know. It's something to avoid, but for the most part they'll continue to target you until you break line of sight also, by the way. I don't know if elytras affect that or not. If they do, it only increases that range by a block or two. So I've been mostly keeping my elytra on, and it seems to work out just fine. So another thing he pointed out in his video is that you don't need to do the curved rail like I was doing before. This one's going to be hard to get at because of this carpet here. I guess I can just remove this carpet. You can actually just run rail right next to them. Let's try not to get too close to them, like so. And they'll actually get in the cart just like that. So if we power up this rail here. Yeah, it seems like the elytra isn't affecting the range at all. So there we go. And then he's going to go on his way up. And I've got rockets here somewhere. Oh, he shot me. There we go. So same basic concept as what I was doing in the end here is that come on, land. There we go. Whew. So we've got a activator rail right there, and so he's trying to pick a spot to teleport to, and there are only 2, and they're right there, right next to the portal. And so I just push this button here, and it sends him through the portal. Over here on the nether side, the area is already prepared because it's all just flat glass everywhere around here. I moved the portal up a few blocks because I was worried that they might teleport down under the nether roof if there's an area down there. So moving it up a little bit, make sure that they teleport onto the ground here. And so I've got a rail going all the way over. We'll go see that in a second. So I just got to do the same basic thing here, setting up a rail and running it right next to him. Try not to get too close to him myself so that the invisibility continues to work. And let's power that and send him along. And then I'll just follow him myself in a cart rather than trying to fly. So I'm about 500 blocks down from my nether hub down there. And I've got this area. He's actually already teleported. He does it pretty quickly because there are a lot of different spaces for him to teleport to. So this is where I'm going to store them. I wanted to get them all out of the carts so that there's not extra lag from the carts. And I don't need to move them because the mob switch, actually, because I'm in the nether, there's no preloaded chunks. I need a chunk loader. So instead of moving the mobs back and forth into loaded chunks, all I have to do is turn the chunk loader all on and off. So I can leave the shulkers stationary, and I don't need to worry about minecarts or anything like that. So you can see over here, this is where they stuck. So I did some testing in creative, and I found that they won't teleport next to each other, and they won't even teleport diagonal to each other. And if you just put a block in the air, they will only teleport to 2 sides of the block that are across from each other. They won't teleport to adjacent sides of the same block, which was really strange. So the most compact way I could find to do that was to have 36 blocks, so 6 by 6, and then we're just using both sides, and then I've used glass panes to block off all the places that I don't want them to teleport. So this works. This gives me 72 slots for them to teleport to. Guess I'm visible again now. And we need 71. And the added benefit of this is that when I get to 72, it'll be very, very clear that every spot is filled. So I don't have to keep track or anything like that. I just get to look up at this board, and if there's any slots available, I still need to keep going and getting shulkers. So we're 2 down, 70 to go. Another thing that Nembomb mentioned in his video is that When shulkers come through the end portal, they will attempt to go to the spawn chunks, and they will make 2 attempts to teleport within those spawn chunks. And then if that fails, they will go to the same space in the end as they were, which is usually at 0, 0. Now, I haven't had that happen yet, but that's probably why I had a shulker shell at 0, 0, and then the rest of them have come to this area right here. And then I pushed through 2 more, and those all came here as well. And I had already set up this whole thing here. So, but at some point, I will probably have spawn failures here, and I'll have to go over to 0, 0 and set up the same thing there. And then he recommended that, you know, if I hadn't already done this, that I would just put, make everywhere in spawn unspawnable so that they always go to 0, 0. But at this point, I've already set this up, so I might as well just check both spots. Maybe if that gets too annoying, as I get closer and closer to 70, maybe I'll block off all the spawns. I have blocked off all the spawns down here, because I don't want to deal with any of this. If something spawns there, that would be kind of annoying. But I haven't run into that yet, but I probably will. What's interesting, though, is that the same thing is true for the Nether. So I've pushed 2 things through the Nether portal, and they haven't shown up in this area yet. So they probably had spawn failures, and then I went looking for them. So if I go to -200, 200, should be somewhere in this direction. That's where my spawn chunks are in the overworld. There they are. So that's kind of interesting. So I might actually want to do the same thing there, where I block off all the places that they can teleport in the over there, and then just run a rail from this section all the way over to there, so that I don't have to keep looking for them in different places. But it's interesting that that's how it works. Yep, as predicted, I sent 5 more shulkers through the end portal, and 4 of them ended up at 0, 0, and only 1 of them ended up at spawn. So, time to set up something here, I guess. It's actually a bit of a pain to set up the portal with all the buttons around it and make sure all the blocks nearby have all the buttons. So I just made a rail that connects this one to that one. I don't know if I'll end up regretting that, but it'll work for now at least. So I finished up the first end city, and this is what it ended up looking like. I've got the single rail going down, and every time I found a new one, I just connected it until I've got rails going to pretty much every single spot. Everywhere in this place, there's rails running through this entire midsection right here. Just wherever I found a little shulker, I just added onto the rail. It kept on going until I ended up with all of them. So I'm pretty sure I got all of them, because it's a much slower process than a normal end city raid where you might miss 1 or 2 of them. And then over here, we've got the 2 that are left, and I've got this like little 6-section rail system, and then I was switching it back and forth, and so I got to switch them all this way so that they leave like so. And then I'd send these last 2 on their way, and then I follow them. I've got 16 of the shulkers loaded up so far. I've lost 7 of them, unfortunately. I lost 2 in transport, which isn't too bad. I did expect to lose a couple in transport. But then I also, unfortunately, I lost 5 of them here. Somehow, one of them got sight of me, and they just all started shooting. And since there's nowhere to shoot but inside this box, they just started killing each other. I had to fly away as quickly as possible, take an invisibility potion. I came back, and 5 of them had died in the process. So I've extended the glass down to the floor, so hopefully that prevents that from happening. And then when I set up the chunk loader, it's going to be like a chunk over, so I shouldn't ever have to come within range of them anyways once I get this all set up. But it seems like that might have been what caused it, but hopefully that doesn't happen again. So hopefully, so we should have theoretically have gotten 23 from that end city. So looks like we might need to do about 3 more end cities before we get there. It's going to be quite a bit of work, but it should be pretty cool once it's done. The next end city was unfortunately a couple thousand blocks away, but I have managed to already set up the rail going all the way down there. So I'm now on to my 3rd shulker box of golden rails here. I am using chunk base to find the end cities because I don't want to have to travel any further than I have to. So you can see here, here's the first end city that I found, and 00 is, well, 1000 is right here. So that one was only a few hundred blocks away, but all the rest of them are another 1,000 or so blocks away. And this one I went to, and it's actually really tiny, so I didn't bother with running a rail for, 1,000, almost 2,000 blocks just for a tiny little end city. And then this one is along the path that I had already set up, so I got to save 600 blocks by going down to this one. And then it's got this one over here. I haven't been to it yet, but hopefully it's a decent size as well. And as you can see, this is actually quite a big end city, so hopefully I can get a decent number of chokers out of this. I finished off the second end city, and it actually ended up being quite a bit bigger than I thought it would be. I ended up getting a lot of chokers out of this city, and I've got 6 more down here that are ready to go. These are the last 6. Ended up being exactly 6 left in the end city. So I'm ready to send these guys off on their way. It's going to be like a 5-minute minecart just to get back to the end portal. So I got those chokers over here to the choker wall, and unfortunately one of them did not make it. But that was actually the first one to die in that entire end city. Only one of them didn't make it. So now it's actually easier to count the number of spaces that aren't filled. So there's 4 on this side, and there should be 5 on this side. So I should be at 63 right now. I would have had 64. Yep, 5 on this side. So I would have had 64. So that means I would have gotten 48 chokers from that end city. I ended up only getting 47, but I only need 9 more. So I guess I'll go to that next end city, and hopefully that one is large enough that it has 9 chokers, and then I will be done. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to have the 9 chokers that I need. That should not be a problem at all. Alright, this should be the last run of chokers. I've got a full run of 6, despite only needing 3, because if any of them die, I do not want to have to come back here. There's still a decent number of chokers in this end city, and I'm just going to leave them there because at some point I might end up wanting to make an overworld mob switch. So I've already got some rails going up that, so that'll at least help start the process. So let's head on our way back and finish up this mob switch. 5 of the 6 of them have made it to the Nether. 1 died in transport, so I'm glad I brought some extra ones. And these ones I have to send one at a time because there's only 3 spots on the wall for them to teleport to. So it takes a while for them to pick a teleport spot, so it's better to just send them one at a time. Alright, this should be the last one right here. Let's hop off the cart. Hopefully that cart doesn't pick him up. It did last time. Yep. So let's just stop him there and send him back. There we go. Alright, and he's only got 1 spot to teleport to. So the next thing I want to do is, this is just a safety measure, is I want to set up a glass roof up here. So there's the 1 spot. He hasn't picked it yet. So can't place any blocks yet. Might take him a minute. Alright, he's up on the wall now. That is, man, that is satisfying to look at. It's just, that is so cool. Alright, so like I said, I want to put a glass roof up here, much like I had to do down here. I just want to make sure that there's no lines of sight that can ever come up. So there's an off chance that I might fly over this or something like that. So I'm invisible right now. I still need to be super duper careful to make sure I don't get within range of any of these guys. And so maybe just to be safe, let's take our elytra off and then place a glass roof up here. I could not have placed a glass roof up earlier because they would be able to teleport onto this glass. I possibly could have put slabs up here, but I probably should have. The glass probably does look a little better, but I could have put slabs up earlier. I just didn't think about it. I thought it would be fine. I thought that these would block off enough lines of sight, but after having the incident where 5 of them died, I do not want any chance of anything like that happening. Not after all the work I put into this. Alright, there we go. Now it is time to set up the chunk loader. So this is the overworld side of the chunk loader. This is a design by Nembomb. I'll put a link in the description. But I ended up building this exact same design in my last episode, but I built it for something that didn't end up working. but the chunk loader works just fine. And I've got it way up in the sky because it needs to be, the portal needs to be in pretty much exactly the same position in the overworld and the nether. So let's go on through to the nether side. I've got my inventory blocked up, so I can't pick up that block that's being shot between these two portals. That would turn it off if I did pick that up. So over here on the nether side, it's basically the exact same thing. And these things are just shooting a block back and forth between them that keeps these chunks loaded. And so it keeps this chunk loaded right here, and then one chunk radius loaded as well. And it might even keep another chunk loaded as lazy chunks, which doesn't really matter for what we're trying to do. But you can see that all of those shulkers are inside of one chunk. That's definitely on purpose, and it's one chunk away. And I actually put this on the far side of this chunk right here so that I'm as far away from those shulkers as possible, just because they have a 16 block sight radius. So hopefully I don't even have to come within that range. They shouldn't be able to shoot me through the glass or anything like that, but every precaution I can take. It just took so much work to put all those shulkers in there that I don't want to take any chances with it. So I've got the switch right here, and you can see there's a hopper down here, and if I power this block right here, it'll power that hopper, and that'll hold the hopper, and that'll turn the mob, the whole thing off, and actually keeps the block on top of it. So when I turn it back on, I might have to add another block to it. Not a real big deal, but if I switch it back on, it should turn right back on, and see the item spitting right back through. Yep, and it seems to be working, so that's great. And I had a redstone lamp here so that it tells me, I can even see from a distance whether it's on or off. So everything's working here, at least as far as the chunk loader is going. So let's go down into the lower level of nether and see if there are any mobs spawning. I'm actually really nervous about this, because if it doesn't work, I might cry. Oh my god, what a beautiful sight. I don't see any mobs anywhere around. It looks like everything is working wonderfully. Oh, I'm really happy about this. Yep, this is definitely working. Now, one thing that I should add, by the way, is that the chunk loader that I'm using, basically any chunk loader you use, isn't going to load back up when you restart a server or something like that. I don't know how it works on a single player world, but on a server, when you restart the server, it won't initially load those chunks, so the chunk loader won't turn itself on. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're doing an overworld mob switch, then you just leave them in the spawn chunks, and those ones will load automatically. But if you're doing this on a server, either you need some sort of startup script that would load those chunks really quick, or you'd have to actually go to those chunks right away and turn that mob switch back on every time that the server restarts. But yeah, look at this. There is nothing spawning anywhere. This is so fantastic. All right, it looks like I've got some cleanup to do then. I'm going to leave all the infrastructure in the end, because I might actually use that again if I ever decide to set up an overworld mob switch. But all of this stuff in the overworld and in the nether, there's no reason to keep it around, because if I do set up an overworld mob switch, then I would need a whole different type of transportation system. I obviously wouldn't be moving them to the nether. Instead, I would be moving them over to the border of the spawn chunks. So that would be a totally different system, so there's no reason to keep this around. Another thing worth mentioning is that if I were playing on a server with other players, I might actually have to set up multiple sets of shulkers. Like, you need 141 shulkers in order for there to be 2 players in the nether, and then another 70 in order for there to be 3. But hopefully, if you were doing that on a server or something like that, you'd have other people helping you move all those shulkers. But I don't have to worry about that, so I'm not going to. So I'm all done in the nether. I think I'm just going to cover this big old hole here with grass blocks like so. This used to be the way down to my old mine, but there's no reason to go down there anymore, so I think I could just pretend this doesn't exist. Oh, I actually forgot about these 2 guys. These are the 2 that I brought that were extra that I didn't end up needing. So I guess these guys are just shulker shells. There's no sense leaving them laying around. I gotta clean up this area. You couldn't drop a shulker shell at least? Neither of them. Alright. All right, so I've got everything cleaned up here, so it's all looking nice and good. But what's really nice about being done with this project is that I can finally wear armor again. Man, between gravity and being two-shot by Enderman, I died at least a dozen times on that project. Now, you may have noticed that I have not worked on this Nether Hub in a couple of episodes, and that was actually quite intentional because I was working on a mob switch, and I think the mob switch will help quite a bit when I'm working on this because I can place down all the blocks underneath and not have to worry about gas spawning or anything like that. So I intentionally waited until I was done with the mob switch before I started working on this again. So I should be resuming that probably in the next episode. So it's time once again to put in some more work on my floating island. So my dog recently developed an ACL tear and we had to take her in for some knee surgery. And normally my office is upstairs, but she can't go upstairs because she has stitches in her knees. So I have temporarily moved my office downstairs so that I can keep a closer eye on her and make sure that she's not licking at her stitches. And that way she doesn't have to live in a cone for the next 2 weeks. And that means that there might be a slight delay in my next episode because it's harder to make meaningful recordings down in that environment. Everything should be back to normal after that. She gets her stitches out in about a week and a half, and then she'll be able to start going up and downstairs normally. So just wanted to let everybody know that there might be a slight delay in the next episode, but then after that, everything should go back to normal. So I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.